I just got a call from the hospital saying that Emily was rushed there in an emergency. Hurry to the hospital. I'm at home right now, but I'll head there immediately, my husband, Daniel, said. I was momentarily confused by what he meant. Then, puzzled, I replied, I'm at my parents' house right now, but what do you mean? Did the hospital really call? Daniel, clearly irritated, said, Yes, that's why I'm telling you to hurry up. But as I looked at my daughter, sleeping next to me, I said, Emily's right here sleeping next to me, though. Hearing this, Daniel was speechless and just uttered, Oh? My name is Laura Thompson. I'm a 33-year-old housewife. I live with my daughter, Emily, and Daniel, who is 2 years older than me. Emily, who just turned 10 and is in the 4th grade. I quit my full-time job when Emily was born, but started working part-time when she entered elementary school. Daniel graduated from a top university and works for a leading trading company in the U.S. We met in college when a friend invited me to a drinking party, where we happened to sit next to each other. We exchanged contacts and occasionally met up for movies and coffee. We weren't in a serious relationship, but I didn't mind meeting him. Maybe I bragged a bit to my friends about having a friend from a prestigious university. However, after meeting a few times, Daniel asked me out, and we started dating. I wasn't particularly in love, but I didn't dislike him either. Honestly, I tend to go with the flow and make decisions based on others' influence. When Daniel asked for my contact, I wasn't particularly attracted to him, but I gave it to him anyway, and I hung out with him, just to avoid the hassle of saying no. I've always thought life is easier when someone else makes decisions. So when Daniel proposed after graduation, I accepted without much thought. I figured being married to someone successful meant I wouldn't have to worry about money. My friends envied me for marrying an elite, but I wasn't particularly moved. On the other hand, Daniel has always been considered a prodigy and confidently made his own decisions, believing they were always right. Honestly, he can be quite condescending, which is why I think many people dislike him. For Daniel, I must have been easy to control, so he probably found me easy to deal with. I think he married me more for convenience than love. In fact, I always let him make decisions, and if he opposes something I want to do, I immediately give it up. It's tiring to fight for what I want, and there's rarely anything I want that much. Since we started dating, there's been a clear hierarchy in our relationship. Daniel often says, Laura, you can't do anything without me. Whenever I express a different opinion, he says, How dare you go against my opinion, Laura? You should just do as I say. Many people would see this as condescending. When I mentioned this to a friend, she was concerned and said, It's totally wrong. But in my mind, our marriage works, so it must be fine. There are as many right ways to have a marriage as there are couples. That's what I always tell myself. Until that day. One day, during Emily's summer break, we decided to stay at my parents' house for a few days. My parents wanted to see their granddaughter, so we planned a short visit. Of course, I discussed it with Daniel well in advance. He readily agreed. I was glad, as I would have canceled it if he had opposed it. Daniel couldn't join us because of work, but that wasn't an issue, as my parents just wanted to see Emily. Say hi to your folks for me, he said as we left. My parents' house is about a 30-minute drive away. When we visited, my parents welcomed us warmly. It had been over half a year since our last visit. I always think about visiting them more often, but it's hard with our busy schedules.
When a housewife slacks off on her chores, it's the same as me not going to work. It's negligence. You seem to think that working a part-time job counts as real work, but that's hardly the case at all. There's no real responsibility involved, so it's just like a hobby. A real job like mine involves significant responsibility and comes with a salary that reflects that.
I don't visit my parents too often because I can tell it makes him grumpy. So once every 6 months is just about right. Despite this, he doesn't help at all with the housework or childcare. He has no idea how tough it is to juggle a part-time job, house chores, and looking after our daughter. Of course, expressing such complaints would only lead to more scolding from him. So I keep quiet, but the dissatisfaction is definitely building up inside. My mom always says it must be tough for me, so I should relax and take it easy. And I decided to take her words to heart to recharge. She even cooked lunch for me. Mom's cooking is always so delicious. It may sound old-fashioned to talk about Mom's cooking, but there's something special about the taste you've grown up with. I can always relax when I'm at my parents' house. Since some of my old friends still live in the neighborhood, I thought about inviting them over for to eat later. As I was thinking about this, I felt full and content. I dozed off. Emily joined me in a nap. Soon, I was woken up by the sound of my phone ringing in the distance. It was a call from Daniel.
I can't understand people who still use phones. They are old. People who prefer phone calls over messaging must be incompetent at their jobs. With texts or emails, you can convey just the essentials and the recipient can check them at their convenience. Phone calls, on the other hand, are intrusive, disregarding the other person's situation, and you can't just hang up after stating your business, leading to wasted time. It's not cost-effective at all. Don't call me unless it's really necessary.
He insists, so I knew he must really hate phone calls. Once when I called him, he lectured me for ages about forgetting his dislike for them. Of course, I've almost never gotten calls from him. I can barely remember the last time he called me. He is now calling me, which must mean something urgent. Feeling a bit anxious, I answered the phone. It was unusual for him to sound so flustered. As he said, Emily was just rushed to the hospital. Hurry up and get there. I'm at home now, but I'll head over too. For a moment, I couldn't grasp what he was saying. Confused, I replied, "What? I'm at my parents' house right now. But what do you mean? Did the hospital really call?" Annoyed, Daniel said, "Yes, that's why I'm telling you to hurry." However, looking at my daughter, sleeping next to me, I said, "Emily's right here sleeping next to me, though." Hearing this, Daniel just muttered, "Oh," and was at a loss for words. What could this mean? I was completely baffled, so I asked him, "Was it just the wrong number? But you believed it and were so worried, so it must have seemed real, right?" Suddenly, he snapped, "Shut up. If it was a mistake, then there's no problem," and hung up the phone. What was all that about? It's unlike Daniel to make a wrong number call and even contact me about it. He's always calm and doesn't make a call unless he's sure. If he had any doubts, he would have probably sent a message first. I couldn't believe it was just a wrong number, so I decided to call the hospital myself. I told the receptionist Daniel's name and that I was his wife, and they transferred me to someone in charge.
Yes, Daniel's daughter has indeed been brought here. Please come to the hospital as soon as possible. She's not in a life-threatening condition, but she collapsed in the middle of the street. The preliminary test didn't find anything unusual, but we don't know the cause of her collapse, so she'll be admitted for further testing.
When I asked if they were sure it was Daniel's daughter, they replied she had Daniel's wallet with her and said it was her dad's, so we're pretty sure. The wallet had his driver's license in it, and she recognized him from the photo. They had contacted him using the business card in the wallet. It all made sense. But since my daughter, Emily, was sleeping right next to me, it couldn't be her. The more I thought about it, the more confused I became. As I was trying to make sense of it all, the person on the phone asked, "You are Daniel's wife, right? So you're her mother, and will be coming over, right?" I tend to agree to things when asked, so I instinctively said, "Oh, yes. I'm on my way." After hanging up, I thought to myself, what's the point of me going there if it's just some unknown girl admitted to the hospital? But since I said I'd go, I felt I had to. I was also curious about why the girl had Daniel's wallet. The most likely explanation seemed to be that she had found the wallet and mistook it for her father's. I asked my parents to look after Emily and headed to the hospital alone. It wasn't too far, just about a 30-minute drive. Luckily, the traffic wasn't bad, and I arrived in about 30 minutes as expected. At the hospital, I gave Daniel's name at the reception, and a nurse led me to the room of the girl who had his wallet. They said she could talk, as she didn't seem to have any physical injuries or illness. When I entered the room, I saw a girl about the same age as Emily sleeping there. The nurse cheerfully said, "Your mom is here." The girl woke up. But since I wasn't her mother, she naturally asked the nurse, "Mom's here. Where is she?" The nurse, thinking I was her mother, said, "Right in front of you." The girl looked at me, confused, and said, "This lady isn't my mom. I don't know her. Who is she?" as she turned to the nurse. The nurse was surprised and asked, "Wait, is there some mistake? You're not her mom. Could you look again?" But the girl firmly denied again, saying, "Definitely not. She's not my mom. I've never seen her before." Hearing this, the nurse's face stiffened with a look of disbelief. She turned to me, now filled with distrust, and asked, "Who are you?" Thinking it's better to be honest rather than causing more confusion, I explained, "Actually, I heard that a girl with my husband's wallet was brought to the hospital, and I came to find out why." The nurse, confused, asked, "You mean you're the wife of the wallet's owner? But if you're not this girl's mother, what's going on?" "I have no idea either. Daniel hasn't told me anything." I then turned to the girl to clear things up. "Hi there, I'm Laura. What's your name?" The girl replied openly, "I'm Michelle Johnson." The name Johnson rang a bell. I remembered a woman named Emily Johnson among Daniel's colleagues at our wedding. She was quite close to Daniel, which struck me as odd. Despite my presence, she had taken photos with him, arms draped around each other, and even hugged him to offer congratulations. I remembered complaining about their excessive closeness. Daniel had explained she was just more physically affectionate, but I couldn't shake off a feeling of suspicion. The girl shared the same last name as that woman. The surname Johnson is easy to remember. As far as I know, I'm only aware of one person with that name. Dismissing this as a coincidence seems far-fetched. Fearing the worst, but keeping calm, I continued talking to Michelle. I'm a friend of your dad. He's busy with work and can't come, so he asked me to check on you. I heard you have his wallet. Is that true? He asked me to confirm it. Can I see it? Michelle obediently showed me the wallet, which I recognized immediately as Daniel's. In fact, I had given it to him as a birthday present, so there was no mistaking it. There was no doubt now. Can I see what's inside, just to be sure? I asked. She showed me, and it contained Daniel's business cards and driver's license. This confirmed it was indeed his wallet. But there was a chance Michelle was mistaken. So I asked, just to double check, what's your dad's name? She promptly replied, my dad's name is Daniel Thompson. He works at the same company as my mom. This wasn't a misunderstanding. Moreover, she said her mom worked at the same company as Daniel. My worst fears seemed to be becoming reality, but I had to be sure. I asked Michelle why her last name was different from her dad's, but she hesitated and didn't provide a clear answer. But Mom said she's going to change her last name to his soon, was all she said. Taking a leap, I asked, is your mom's name Emily, by any chance? She confirmed, yes, that's right. Are you friends with her too? My suspicions were confirmed. Just as I was grappling with this shocking revelation, I heard a voice from behind.
Hey, what are you doing here?
It was Daniel. I was surprised, but it made sense for him to be here, since his daughter was hospitalized. Plus, he knew about the wallet with his driver's license. Trying to remain calm, I asked, why are you here? You were angry about a wrong number earlier. So if you're here, does that mean it wasn't a wrong number after all? I wanted to hear his explanation. He awkwardly said, I came because I heard someone had my wallet. Maybe she found it after I lost it. Michelle then clarified, Dad left it at our house when he visited. I was bringing it back to him, but collapsed on the way.
What are you talking about? Maybe she hit her head when she collapsed, or the medication is affecting her. She must be mistaking me for her dad. Hope her real dad shows up soon. I'll take the wallet then.
In his explanation, Daniel, flustered, talked over Michelle's words and forcibly took the wallet from her. Michelle, upset by Daniel's incomprehensible actions and his forceful taking of the wallet, ended up crying. Ignoring her tears, he said, I'm leaving now. You're heading back too, right? See you then. And quickly left. As Daniel and I were about to leave the hospital room, he bumped into a man entering. Oh, sorry, Daniel said, trying to continue on. But the man stopped him.
Excuse me, aren't you Daniel?
Daniel, not expecting to hear his name here, responded with surprise. Yes, that's me, but who might you be? It was clear he didn't recognize the man. The man glanced at Michelle and whispered, Perhaps you'll understand if I say I'm her grandfather. Hearing this, I couldn't help but exclaim in shock. Daniel was even more astonished. His eyes were wide and mouth was trembling. Obviously, he was struggling to find words, but he couldn't say anything. The man said, I need to talk to you about something not suitable in front of the child. Could you step outside for a moment? It won't take long. Daniel, pale-faced, followed him out of the room. Wanting to be part of the conversation, I followed them and asked the man, May I join you? He initially hesitated, saying the conversation was extremely private. But when I quickly stated, I'm actually his wife, he looked surprised and nodded in acknowledgement. Daniel, seemingly not wanting me there, tried to object, but was silenced by the man's stern gaze. We left the hospital and entered a nearby cafe. The man introduced himself as Tom Johnson. I'm Michelle's grandfather. You're Daniel's wife. I'm terribly sorry for what my daughter, Emily, has done. Please forgive us. He apologized sincerely. I had my suspicions, but needed confirmation. Johnson revealed a shocking truth.
I only found out today from my daughter that Michelle is actually my granddaughter. Emily left home about 10 years ago to live alone, and I didn't know she was raising a child as a single mother.
He continued, explaining. As expected, hearing it from someone else was quite shocking.
Today, when she happened to return to our home, that man, Daniel, called our daughter. After the call, she visibly became suspicious. Upon questioning, she confessed to having a 10-year-old child. She probably panicked when she heard her daughter was hospitalized. Otherwise, she might not have confessed, so the timing of the call was fortunate. For that man, it must have been the worst timing, though.
Tom explained how he came to be involved. Then I asked, and she also confessed that the father is Daniel, right? He nodded in agreement.
Yes, exactly. I came to the hospital after learning that the father of the child is a married man. My daughter told me the child's father would come to retrieve his wallet.
Looking at Daniel, he was trembling. I thought he was trembling out of regret for his misdeeds. But then, he suddenly shouted angrily, What the hell? She told everything. This is ridiculous. He was shaking with anger, not remorse. His behavior, especially in front of his mistress's father, was unbelievable. Was he really such a person? I thought he was proud, but I didn't expect him to lack any sense of ethics. I felt deeply ashamed to be his wife. Naturally, Tom was furious at his words.
Do you realize what you're saying? I admit my daughter did something terrible to your wife, but you are not blameless. In fact, you should be apologizing to us. What are you misunderstanding?
His anger was justified. But then Daniel said something unbelievable.
Blameless? What are you talking about? Making me feel this uncomfortable is a huge sin. Why should I apologize to you? Being able to have my child should be considered a blessing. You should be thanking me.
He was completely unrepentant, looking down on us instead. Where did he get such confidence? I couldn't tolerate it anymore. So I said, Unbelievable. You're justifying having an affair and a secret child. I can't live with someone like you. We're definitely getting a divorce. Daniel was shocked and confused, as I had always followed his decisions without question. What are you saying? You can't do anything without me. You should just obey what I decide. There's no way we're getting a divorce, he exclaimed. But my decision was firm. I couldn't possibly live with such a terrible person. It would be detrimental to my daughter's upbringing. Fortunately, she was with my parents, so I decided to go home, pack up my essentials, and stay with my parents. I couldn't stand being in the same space as Daniel anymore. I've heard enough. I'm leaving. I don't think we'll ever see each other again, unless it's in court, I said and left, ignoring Daniel's red-faced protests. When I returned home and told my parents everything, they were furious and supported my decision to divorce. They said my daughter and I could live with them, so I no longer had to worry about a place to stay. Later, Daniel tried to resist the divorce, leading to mediation. Due to having a secret child, he was in a disadvantaged position, and the divorce was granted mostly in my favor. I received a considerable amount of alimony, which must have been a blow to him. However, that wasn't the end. Tom, the father of Daniel's mistress, turned out to be a senior executive at one of Daniel's client companies. Unaware of this, Daniel had insulted him. Daniel didn't know him since Dom wasn't his direct client contact, but of course, such disrespect would be unforgivable. Tom reported directly to the company about a married man in their ranks having an affair with his daughter, saying he couldn't do business with a company harboring such a man. The company, to avoid losing a major client, significantly reduced Daniel's salary and transferred him to a subsidiary. Being a man of pride, he resigned. He thought he could easily find another job due to his elite university background. However, his egocentric nature was evident in interviews, and he failed to secure a position at any company he applied to. He ended up at a small firm with even lower pay than the subsidiary he had refused. In such a place, boasting about his high education only made him a subject of ridicule. Desperate with his dire situation, Daniel contacted me, attempting reconciliation. When I firmly stated that there was no way I would reconcile with someone heartless, he then demanded to see our daughter. Daniel claimed that it was his right as a father to see our daughter, but Emily, being 10 years old, surprisingly understands what her father did and has firmly said she doesn't want to meet him. He seemed to have given up after I told him this. I'm relieved to hear my daughter's words. It seems she's growing up well. Michelle, who was hospitalized, underwent thorough examinations, but nothing serious was found. She has been discharged and is now living happily with her mother. It appears she fainted due to a slight case of anemia, so I'm relieved. Following the incident, Michelle has also expressed that she doesn't want to see her father. She's innocent in all of this, so I hope she can forget her father's existence and find happiness. Thankfully, she has her grandfather's financial support, so there's no need to worry. Speaking of which, I also received alimony as compensation for the affair, both from Daniel and his mistress. In a way, I'm grateful to them for providing the impetus for our divorce. Emily, the mistress, seemed genuinely remorseful and insisted that I accept the alimony, so I did. My hard work at my part-time job was recognized, and I was happily hired as a full-time employee. With the alimony from both Daniel and his mistress, I don't foresee any financial difficulties ahead. I plan to work hard and live a joyful life with my daughter.